Gentleman's Agreement, 1947. When Gentleman's Agreement won Best Picture at the 1948 Oscars, it sent the shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. Directed by Elia Kazan and starring Gregory Peck, the film dared to confront anti-Semitism at a time when silence was the norm. Peck played a journalist who posed as a Jewish man to experience the discrimination firsthand, uncovering a deeply rooted social prejudice that many preferred to ignore. The movie's message was bold, raw, and unapologetic, and that's exactly why it stirred so much controversy. Powerful studio heads were uncomfortable with the subject matter, and some critics called it too political or even dangerous. There were whispers of blacklisting, and several key figures in Hollywood labeled Kazan a troublemaker for lifting the veil on America's quiet bigotry. Yet, audiences responded with stunned admiration, and the Academy had no choice but to reward its daring. The Oscar win wasn't just about cinematic excellence, it was a statement. Gentleman's Agreement didn't just tell a story. It challenged an entire industry to stop looking away. In an era of conformity, it stood as a rebellious act of truth. On the Waterfront, 1954. When On the Waterfront swept the 1955 Oscars with 8 wins, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Marlon Brando, it wasn't just celebrated, it was scrutinized. Beneath its gritty realism and powerful performances lay a deeply controversial subtext. Directed by Elia Kazan, the film told the story of Terry Malloy, a dock worker who dares to stand up against union corruption. But to many in Hollywood, it wasn't just a crime drama. It was a political confession. Kazan had recently testified before the House Un-American Activities Committee, naming names of alleged communists in the film industry. Many viewed On the Waterfront as his defense, with Brando's character symbolizing Kazan himself, a man choosing to do the right thing by turning others in. That narrative ignited outrage. While critics hailed the film as a masterpiece of social realism, others condemned it as a justification for betrayal. Still, audiences couldn't deny its raw emotion, searing dialogue, and Brando's magnetic performance. Winning Best Picture turned On the Waterfront into a landmark moment, not just in cinema, but in America's ongoing war over loyalty, integrity, and silence. The Best Years of Our Lives, 1946. The Best Years of Our Lives was more than a movie. It was a mirror held up to post-war America. When it won Best Picture at the 1947 Oscars, it resonated deeply with a nation still reeling from World War II. Directed by William Wyler, the film followed 3 veterans returning home and struggling to reintegrate into civilian life. Unlike the glossy, heroic portrayals typical of a time, this film was brutally honest. It showcased PTSD, physical disabilities, unemployment, and the quiet disillusionment that many soldiers faced. The casting of real-life amputee Harold Russell, who lost both hands in the war, was revolutionary and controversial. Some critics questioned whether his inclusion was exploitative, while others called it courageous and groundbreaking. Russell ended up winning 2 Oscars, one honorary and one for Best Supporting Actor, a first in Academy history. The film's raw humanity stirred debate. Was it too bleak? Too real? But that honesty is exactly what made it unforgettable. It forced America to confront the cost of war, not in medals or parades, but in broken lives and silent suffering. Its Oscar win was a victory for truth. Gone with the Wind, 1939. When Gone with the Wind stormed the 1940 Oscars with a record-breaking 10 Academy Awards, it was hailed as a cinematic triumph. But behind the sweeping romance and grand visuals lay a legacy soaked in controversy. The film painted a romanticized picture of the American South during the Civil War and Reconstruction, a vision critics say whitewashed slavery and glorified the Confederacy. While audiences were dazzled by Vivien Leigh's fiery performance as Scarlett O'Hara and Clark Gable's unforgettable Rhett Butler, others couldn't ignore the troubling subtext. African-American activists protested the film's premiere, and many modern historians have criticized its depiction of enslaved people as loyal and content. Even Hattie McDaniel's historic win as the first Black Oscar recipient came with painful irony. She wasn't allowed to sit with her white co-stars at the ceremony. Gone with the Wind became a paradox, both a technical marvel and a cultural lightning rod. Its Oscar sweep cemented its status as a Hollywood legend, but its legacy continues to stir debate. It remains a monument to both the grandeur of cinema and the dangers of nostalgia unchecked. The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. When The Bridge on the River Kwai took home 7 Oscars in 1958, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Alec Guinness, it wasn't just a triumph of filmmaking. It was a powder keg of controversy. Based on real events, the film follows British POWs forced by the Japanese to build a bridge in Burma during World War II. But the story takes a disturbing turn. Colonel Nicholson, played masterfully by Guinness, begins to take pride in the bridge, blurring the line between honor and betrayal. Many British veterans were furious, calling the portrayal of their officers inaccurate and even disgraceful. Critics questioned whether the film justified collaboration with the enemy. Japanese historians, too, accused the film of demonizing their soldiers. And then came the legal dispute. Screenwriter Carl Foreman had been blacklisted during the Red Scare and wasn't even credited originally, despite co-writing the script. The Academy eventually recognized him posthumously. So while The Bridge on the River Kwai is remembered for its iconic whistle and powerful climax, its Oscar win came wrapped in debates over historical truth, political suppression, and cinematic ethics. From Here to Eternity, 1953. When From Here to Eternity claimed 8 Academy Awards in 1954, including Best Picture, it redefined what a Hollywood war drama could be. Set in the days leading up to the Pearl Harbor attack, the film was raw, romantic, and scandalous. It pushed boundaries with its steamy beach scene between Burt Lancaster and Deborah Kerr, considered shockingly provocative for its time. But behind the waves and kisses, controversy brewed. The film tackled taboo topics: military cruelty, corruption, and forbidden love. Montgomery Clift's haunting performance as a principled soldier who refuses to box again, and Frank Sinatra's comeback role as a doomed private, turned the film into a cultural phenomenon. Sinatra's casting was itself controversial. Rumors swirled about mob involvement, whispers made legendary by The Godfather. Meanwhile, the U.S. Army initially opposed the film, fearing its harsh portrayal of military life, but later gave it support after certain script changes. With a mix of politics, passion, and rebellion, From Here to Eternity wasn't just a war film. It was a defiant scream against conformity. Its Oscar glory cemented it as both a masterpiece and a lightning rod in Hollywood history. The Lost Weekend, 1945. When The Lost Weekend won Best Picture at the 1946 Oscars, it shattered Hollywood taboos and left audiences stunned. Directed by Billy Wilder and starring Ray Milland in a career-defining performance, the film was a brutal, unflinching portrait of alcoholism, something rarely shown so openly on screen. Milland played Don Burnham, a failed writer spiraling through a 4-day bender of desperation, delusion, and self-destruction. At a time when movies glamorized drinking, The Lost Weekend ripped the mask off addiction, showing its psychological torment in raw, haunting detail. The film faced serious backlash even before its release. Studios feared it would offend advertisers, liquor companies lobbied against it, and some critics argued it was too bleak for the post-war audience. Milland himself was terrified of the role, thinking it would ruin his image. Instead, it won him the Oscar for Best Actor. With its chilling realism and innovative use of sound and camera work, the film turned Hollywood's mirror inward. The Lost Weekend didn't just win gold. It broke the silence on a dark truth that touched millions and dared others to follow. Cimarron, 1931. When Cimarron shocked the film world by winning Best Picture at the very first Academy Awards in 1931, it set the stage for Hollywood's grand storytelling, but not without controversy. The sweeping epic chronicles the Oklahoma land rush and the dramatic lives of settlers carving out the American West. While praised for its ambitious scope and pioneering cinematic techniques, Cimarron drew sharp criticism for its portrayal of race and Native Americans. The film presented Native characters through stereotypical and often offensive lenses, reflecting the prejudices of its time. Many modern viewers see it as a glaring example of early Hollywood's racial insensitivity. Additionally, the film's romanticized view of westward expansion ignored the harsh realities faced by indigenous peoples. Despite this, Cimarron was groundbreaking in its day, winning 3 Oscars including Best Picture and becoming one of the few early sound films to achieve such acclaim. Its legacy is complicated, celebrated for its technical achievements, but scrutinized for the social values it perpetuated. Cimarron remains a powerful reminder of how far Hollywood has come and how far it still needs to go. Gigi, 1958. When Gigi swept the 1959 Oscars with 9 wins, including Best Picture, it seemed like a dazzling fairy tale brought to life. Directed by Vincente Minnelli, this lush musical about a young Parisian girl being groomed for high society captured hearts with its charm, wit, and memorable songs. But beneath the glamour lay a surprisingly divisive story. Gigi explored themes of grooming a teenage girl to become a courtesan, raising eyebrows even in more conservative times. Critics questioned whether Hollywood was romanticizing a morally dubious practice, and some audiences found the plot unsettling. The film's unapologetic portrayal of this unconventional coming-of-age story sparked debate about gender roles, power dynamics, and societal expectations. Yet, the lavish sets, Andre Previn's Oscar-winning score, and Leslie Caron's sparkling performance won over the Academy and millions worldwide. The film became a symbol of Hollywood's golden era opulence, but also a reminder of how storytelling can blur lines between charm and controversy. Gigi didn't just take home trophies. It challenged viewers to reconsider what fairy tales can really mean. All the King's Men, 1949. All the King's Men stormed the 1950 Oscars by winning Best Picture and Best Actor for Broderick Crawford. But its gripping tale of political corruption came with deep controversy. Based loosely on the life of Louisiana Governor Huey Long, the film exposed the dark, ruthless world behind the American political machine. Crawford's portrayal of Willie Stark, a charismatic but morally compromised politician, struck a nerve with audiences and critics alike. The film was hailed for its bold, unflinching examination of power, ambition, and the corrupting influence of politics, but it also ignited political backlash. Some accused it of smearing politicians and stirring distrust in government at a time when Cold War paranoia gripped the nation. The filmmakers faced pressure and threats, with calls to censor or soften the film's message. Yet, its gritty realism and complex characters pushed Hollywood boundaries, influencing generations of political dramas to come. Winning Best Picture wasn't just a cinematic achievement. It was a bold statement that Hollywood could confront uncomfortable truths about American democracy. The Life of Émile Zola, 1937. When The Life of Émile Zola won the Best Picture Oscar in 1938, it was more than a biographical triumph. It was a rallying cry for justice. The film tells the story of French writer Émile Zola and his courageous fight to expose the wrongful conviction of Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish army officer falsely accused of treason. At a time when anti-Semitism was rising in Europe and the shadow of Nazism loomed large, the film's message of truth and moral courage was daring and controversial. Hollywood's decision to spotlight such a politically charged story angered some who feared backlash from isolationists and appeasers. The film subtly challenged not only French injustice, but also the broader dangers of prejudice and governmental corruption worldwide. Paul Muni's powerful portrayal of Zola brought gravitas and urgency, earning him a Best Actor nomination. The Life of Émile Zola wasn't just an Oscar winner. It was a courageous stand during a time when silence was easier and safer. Its legacy lives on as a beacon for the power of speaking truth to power. Mrs. Miniver, 1942. When Mrs. Miniver won Best Picture at the 1943 Oscars, it became more than just a film. It was a powerful piece of wartime propaganda and a symbol of Allied resilience. Directed by William Wyler, the film follows a British housewife navigating the harsh realities of World War II, showing courage, sacrifice, and the indomitable spirit of ordinary people. Its timing was crucial. America had just entered the war, and Hollywood was tasked with rallying public support. Yet, Mrs. Miniver stirred controversy for its bold political stance. Some critics argued it was too blatant a piece of propaganda, while isolationists in the U.S. saw it as an unwelcome push towards intervention. British officials were concerned about its portrayal of class tensions and the hardships faced by civilians. Despite this, the film struck a chord with audiences on both sides of the Atlantic, earning 6 Oscars. Mrs. Miniver proved that cinema could be a weapon in wartime, not just entertaining, but shaping public opinion and strengthening resolve. The Apartment, 1960. When The Apartment took home 5 Oscars in 1961, including Best Picture and Best Director for Billy Wilder, it wasn't just a romantic comedy. It was a sharp critique of corporate America and moral compromise wrapped in charm and wit. The film tells the story of C.C. Baxter, a lowly office worker who lets his bosses use his apartment for their extramarital affairs, hoping to climb the corporate ladder. But beneath the laughs and romance lurked a controversial portrayal of workplace ethics and personal sacrifice rarely seen in Hollywood at the time. The film dared to address adultery, loneliness, and the dehumanizing corporate grind with honesty and dark humor. Some critics worried it was too risque, while censors debated its candid approach to adult themes. Yet, audiences loved its blend of comedy and social critique, propelled by Jack Lemmon's everyman charm and Shirley MacLaine's vulnerable yet strong performance. The Apartment broke boundaries, proving Hollywood could tackle complex, adult issues without losing heart or humor. Its Oscar triumph marked a shift toward more mature storytelling in American cinema.